أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي اشرح لي صدري ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي ربي زدني علما رب ارزقني علما اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وتوكل الله وكفى بالله وكيلا سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله الله أكبر الله أكبر ولله الحمد اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد سبحان الله وبحمده سبحان الله العظيم. I go back to the word zulm because it's both an indication and also the rescue operation of the strongest wound there is on the human soul. It's an indication, zulm, the indicator being La ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. मैंने अपने ऊपर जुल्म किया. So the indication that there is something not right, there is something not centered. Because remember, the root word of zulm is to take something away from its original place. So it belonged somewhere and we have removed it from its original rightful place and taken it away from its center. So la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin, when we do not feel centered in our choices and in our beliefs, in our feelings, in who we are as souls, it is zulm upon us, an indication that something is off balance. We are not in right alignment with the system of the universe. And it's also a rescuer. It's a rescuer because in the moment that we come into awareness of the fact that we are upon zulm, we are off-centered. The moment we come into awareness of the fact, in the same instant, the same zulm that was acting as an off-centering force for us alchemizes to become our rescuer, because our awareness is what helps us to begin the journey back home to the rightful place that we had left and that we had turned away from. So la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minaz zalimin. मैंने अपने ऊपर जुल्म किया, मैं अपने से दूर चली गई. ये नहीं, and it's the dua of rescue, because it's the dua of Hazrat Yunus from the belly of the whale. Underneath the 7 darknesses of the sea. This is the dua of Hazrat Yunus, through which the anchor holding on to which he was taken out through the 7-layer darknesses of the sea. And he never said, Allah, forgive me, because you are the one who loves to forgive. That's the beautiful dua separately. But he said, मैंने अपने ऊपर जुल्म किया. The fact that I'm here in the belly of the whale is because I was not in awareness of the fact that I had gone away from myself. He did not say, I went away from you. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka, the most beautiful, powerful dua of forgiveness is not even about Allah. It's not even about the Creator. कि I did not do right by you, मैंने आपका हक अदा नहीं किया, मैंने आपके खुदा होने का हक अदा नहीं किया, ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. मैं अपने आप से दूर चला गया. And when we feel into the power of हमारा center फिर क्या है जिससे दूर जाना is जुल्म करना अपने आप पे. वो सेंटर कितना को होल होगा, वो सेंटर कितना फुलफिल्ड होगा, वो सेंटर कितना स्ट्रांग होगा, वो सेंटर कितना नर्चरिंग होगा कि उससे दूर जाना इज लाइक मैं अपने घर से दूर चली गई हूँ और मैं कितनी देर से अपने घर से दूर हूँ अल्लाह ताला जी. और मैंने आई हैव गॉन थ्रू द डेजर्ट्स एंड आई हैव गॉन थ्रू द ओशंस एंड आई हैव ट्रैवल्ड द फॉरेस्ट्स, आई हैव ट्रैवल्ड द माउंटेन्स. इट इज नॉट होम. It's still not home. They're beautiful and dazzling because that's what this dunya is designed to be. It's beautiful and dazzling and it's awe-inspiring. Everything about this dunya is beautiful and dazzling and awe-inspiring. It is not home. And the fact that he found himself recognizing that he's been away from himself, nothing to do with Allah in this moment. The fact that he recognized that he's away from himself, it took him to be in the belly of the whale under 7 darknesses of the sea to recognize that he's been away from himself. And so this point of contrast that we all dread, this point of contrast within ourselves and without ourselves, this dark night of the soul, this depths that we must fall into as is barhak to be able to find our way back home. This contrast is what we find ourselves living and witnessing in these times. Because as Allah is our witness, if we are not tuned in to what is the contrast that's being played out in Palestine in this moment and in this dunya, if we're not tuned into that, then it will take a bigger contrast in our own life to be able to enable us to come back home. The whole world events, every soul event, every life event, every tragedy, every happiness, every depth of zillat that we have gone through, every depth of darkness that we have experienced, every depth of unsafety and terror that we have experienced, all has been only for one objective: find your way, come back home, because you are lost. But the fact that we sometimes need to find ourselves in the belly of the whale, most times, because remember, the root word of insan is what? One, beautiful, powerful, telling root words. दो इसके हैं, one who forgets easily and the one who gets attached easily. थोड़ी देर के लिए हम लोग घर से सौदा लेने निकले थे और वो बाजार में इतनी रौनक थी और इतनी गहमा गहमी थी, इतनी खूबसूरत स्टॉल्स थे, इतनी लाइट्स थी कि हमारी आंखें उससे चुंधिया गई और फिर हमारी सेंसेस उससे चुंधिया गई, फिर हमारे जहन उससे चुंधिया गए, हमारे दिल जो है उससे चुंधिया गए, कि हम लोग भूल ही गए कि हम सिर्फ सौदा लेने के लिए निकले थे और हमने घर वापस आना। And so sometimes the rite of passage, most times for most insan, the rite of passage is the depths of darkness. Because insan is the one who forgets easily. The insan is the one who gets attached easily. And in the events that we're witnessing in this moment in the world, and I really want us to, as uncomfortable as it feels and as unbelievable as it feels, because we are not pharaohs, right? We're not. We have nothing to do with power. We have nothing to do with manipulation. We have nothing to do with withholding resources. That's not who we are. We're just ordinary people trying to live our ordinary lives. No. No. And this is the question that I've been asking myself. How have I enabled the insane, drastic responsibility and self-accountability that we're being asked to take in these times is terrifying. But as Allah is our witness, it is barhak. The incredible amount of self-accountability that we be asked to take is asking ourselves this one question: how have I enabled Palestine? We are not from Palestine. We are from the Muslim Ummah. We practice, we perhaps don't practice. We believe some of it, we disbelieve some of it. Most of it we're not interested in because a lot of it is happening in our own life, and I just don't have the space to contemplate deeply on the reality of the universe. But subhanallah, we are the reality of the universe. Subhanallah, nothing outside us is possible without my consent. So how have I given my consent to Palestine? The reign of oppression is an accelerated frequency that is only possible when it has been upheld vibrationally at an individual level constantly. That means each individual on this planet has contributed to Palestine, and Palestine is not the first of its kind, but it's the biggest and the most deep and the most impactful of its kind, because now it's a tsunami that will not be stopped. And the fact that Palestine is not new, it's been happening for 7 decades now, 8 decades now. It's not new. So how is it that now it's become more potent for us? Because now we are ready to look deeper within ourselves and to self-reflect, because the reign of oppression is not possible without Madiha contributing to it. And how do we contribute? Because one is we become oppressors. That's an extreme version of it. But we enable oppression. We enable oppression in our own homes. How do we do it? The simplest way that we do it is through dissociation. It has nothing to do with us. If we're living in joint family systems, or if we're in workspaces, or if we are in a friend circle where you witness the need for power or control or manipulation being played out repetitively, and you don't call out on it because it is not my circus and it is not my monkey, then we are enabling oppression. Right now, I have not even touched upon how we are the oppressors, because where I stand on the spectrum is I'm the oppressor. And as Allah is my witness, I'm working on shifting that for myself. But even if we are not the oppressors, I'm saying how we enable oppression. When we see our children being abused, emotionally put down. What is abuse? Emotionally put down, emotionally made to feel small. Our house help, when we put them down, emotionally make them feel small. When we withhold resources from them, when we withhold our favors from them, when we speak to them, we feel as if पूरे खानदान का गुस्सा हम लोग उसके ऊपर निकाल सकते हैं. We are the oppressors. That's my story. But how we enable oppression is even when we are really nice to our own children and to our own people and to all people in the workspaces, but we see one person treating the other person not nicely, from a place of manipulation and control and power. And if we do not speak up in our homes, in our workspaces, in our schools, if you see a teacher bashing a student, even when you go to a parent-teacher meeting, oh, they're not doing well in front of us, excuse me. So that entire space is us enabling oppression. But how do we deal with it? First of all, we dissociate. ये हमारा मसला नहीं है. But I'm a part of this beautiful group where this one woman decided not to circulate a very strong content related video about domestic violence, which bordered nahi, there was a murder attempt on his own wife. She refused to share that video. She's like, I will not contribute to this. She spoke of it. She spoke of the issue, but she's like, I will not contribute to eyeballs on this and to enable this kind of circle of trauma for no reason, where you just talk about it, but don't talk about what's happening in your own home, how your own husband is putting you down, how your own son is putting you down, or how you're putting your husband down, how you're putting your own son or daughter down. So in all instances, if we can put like a very specific and a simple reasoning to how we're living in this world, the specific and simple reasoning is, if something is coming up in front of you, whether it's a Facebook or an Instagram or a WhatsApp post, or it's your friend, or it's your family, or it's an event that you're witnessing on the road, anything that is coming up in front of me is so that I may be able to shift it or respond to it. There is no insignificant event happening in my life, ever, ever. So from the very onset then, for me not to enable oppression, first of all, I need to reconnect with my humanity beyond my role of a mother and a sister or a daughter or a wife or a daughter-in-law or a director in a company, whatever it is, or a citizen of Pakistan. I need to reconnect. Dissociation is for most of us as human beings, because we've created these little silos of identities. If my motherhood is under threat, then I will act. If my daughterhood is under threat, then I will act. If my job is under threat, then I will act. If my personal safety is under threat, then I will act. No, we're a part of the collective. If anything that is happening in your life, you don't go out seeking to help, but if anything is happening in your life, it is so that you respond. There is no way otherwise it needed to happen in our life. So this dissociation that has been not just given to us, we've been taught this dissociation. Mind your own business. No, we're not in the business of minding our own business. This is not what the Muslim Ummah is about. We do not mind our own business. We do not enforce our beliefs on another, but we do not mind our own business. One of the four questions that will be asked in the qabr after the primary ones, after the ones of our belief and our faith system, is, how did you take care of your neighbor? How we're not asked to mind our own business. We're asked to show up deeply connected here as human beings because Allah knows that the whole soul of us is connected. So we're not asked to mind our own business. If there is a big fight happening on the road between men who are screaming and giving galiyan to each other, as a woman, we cannot stop. But you know what we can do? We can do a powerful dua, Ya Allah, of softness. I always say darood and Ya Allah, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, and connect from my heart to theirs and give them that dua, as opposed to judging them. Oh, look, they're so apne gharon mein ye nahi rakh rahe, sadkon pe aa rahe. So in every instances, we are asked to not dissociate ourselves from our own families. हमारे जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है वो सिर्फ हमारे कमरों हमारे किचन पे नहीं है, पूरे घर पे हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, फिर मोहल्लों पे हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, फिर एक्सटेंडेड रिलेशनशिप्स पे हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, फिर इस कंट्री पे हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है, फिर इस उम्मा पे हमारी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी है. वी कैरी द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ऑफ everything around us. We're answerable for everything around us. That we've been taught dissociation. Because this is how the colonial powers rule since the beginning of time. Divide and rule. And if we think, because earlier colonization used to happen through brute force. Now it happens through the mind. Divide and rule. Get them to identify what their space is. Get them to be really attached, insan, really attached to that identity and that space that we have created for them. And get them to not bother and not care about anything that's happening beyond this circle. Well, we have to break the circle. We have to break it. Because without that, I have enabled Palestine. Without that, I have enabled Ukraine. Without that, I have enabled this, what is it? This impunity with which the world forces are showing up and saying, kar lo jo karna. And what's bringing this awareness to me, this dissociation, what does Palestine have to do with students in colleges and universities? They're not, most of them are not Muslims. But as students, just remember, as students, we have a certain sense of freedom from the responsibilities and from our relationships and what we call real life. That means that they have not learned to dissociate yet. And God forbid, when they come into the workforce, they will learn to dissociate because the survival mode has been enacted so strongly for all of us कि सबको अपनी अपनी पड़ी हुई है. नफ्सी नफ्सा. But वो नफ्सी नफ्सा का सिर्फ एक वक्त है, which is क़यामा. ये वो वक्त है नहीं. We are being asked to forget our circles. Whether those circles are defined by our countries, our religion, our faith systems, whether we're practicing Muslims, non-practicing, no, connect back to your humanity. Not for Palestine, but for your own homes, so that you can shift it for Palestine. So the first thing we're asked to do is connect back to our own humanity. And the second one is the silence that we have. And the silence is deafening. And I'm saying silence that we have because we enable oppression through the silence that we have. When we see our own parents putting our own children down, or our in-laws putting our own children down, show up, stand up for them. Because what they are learning in that moment, and we don't have to do it from a place of rudeness, but initially it will because we're not used to not being dissociated. You're not used to being not in the survival mode जहां हमने बस अपनी शादियां बचानी है, अपने घर बचाने हैं, अपनी jobs बचानी है और अपने social status बचाना है. We're not used to thinking away from that and challenging that. But subhanallah, to begin with, our children they look at us to give them safety, and they look at us to learn from. So they see one human being, forget the fact that you're a mother or a father, the fact that they look at one human being showing up for them. Or when a woman shows up for her husband, or when a husband shows up for his wife, what they're doing in all instances, हम लोग सिर्फ ये अपने लिए नहीं कर रहे हैं. एक generations हैं जिसको हम लोग कह रहे हैं, it is not okay to be silent. Silence is only of beautiful wisdom when you're going inside and contemplating in the world outside as we show up. No, not silence. Dawa is from behavior, yes, but Quran is a spoken word. It's not a silent frequency, which teaches us that we have tongues. Speak, show up, speak. Use your words, use your wisdom to stand up for somebody who is not strong enough to stand up for themselves. If we see our mothers because I'm not even going to go to our in-laws, but if we see our own mothers working a house help 10 hours a day, speak up and say, no, thank you. Don't do, and speak up. The least we can do is speak up. So connecting back to our humanity and breaking this vow of silence that we've taken, because we know how to be controlled. The control is through isolating ourselves from our own ruh, because once we begin to connect with our own ruh, we will begin to receive the wisdom of the fact कि रूह तो एक है. अगर एक कुत्ते को प्यास लगी है, हमने उसको पानी नहीं पिलाया, वो रूह में दर्द होनी चाहिए. अगर हमारे घर में पौधे हैं जिनको हम लोग पानी नहीं दे रहे हैं, वो हमें रूह में दर्द होनी चाहिए, वो तो फिर इंसान है यार. Like the heightened form of awareness, we need to allow ourselves to connect again, to break our vow of silence. What we're in fact asking ourselves to do, which is the most terrifying thing in the world, is, hey guys, begin to feel again. Begin to feel deeply again. Feel absolutely disappointed. Feel absolutely angry. Feel the rage within you. Feel the hopelessness of this world that you're living in. Feel that there is no future for your kids. Allow yourself to feel it and to mourn it. Because once we have felt it and we have mourned it, it's a bath that we have taken, a cleansing bath, to cleanse ourselves and to cleanse ourselves of all that, so that of all that we had kept bottled up, so that we can then begin to receive the inspiration to move forward through. But the second thing is, when we begin to allow ourselves to feel deeply, what we're in fact doing is starting the biggest rebellion there is. And as subhanallah, this rebellion is something that cannot be controlled, because a feeling heart cannot be colonized. A feeling heart cannot be manipulated. A feeling heart cannot be controlled. A feeling heart is not a slave to any force. And so if your action of standing up against oppression is equal to you losing your job, look at what the students are doing. They worked for it, and this is Harvard. They worked for it and they're not getting the degrees on the graduation. This is the finances and the dreams that have gone through, and all the futures that they had planned linked to that. SubhanAllah, I was watching this one not address, but like a speech earlier. And they said they're walking out of the doors of this college with much more than a degree. They're walking out with a clear conscience. And this clear conscience feels very noble and worthy when we're talking about Palestine. But are we exiting our homes every morning with a clear conscience? It's the same way that they are exiting the university without a degree in the hand, but a clear conscience. Are we in the morning every day exiting our homes with a clear conscience? Are we being able to help? And even if we're not being able to, like, there is a dramatic form of help that we want to, and dramatic form of shift that we want to bring in our own homes and in our own workspaces. But even if we can't, this whole dramatic thing is also an enabler for us to stay put where we are, because then your mind tells you, oh, it'll never happen, you'll never be able to do it, you don't have the resources. How do you break that pattern? Is by doing something small now. Doing something small now in your own homes. And little by little, as we begin to do something small that is connected to the humanity of us beyond the control mechanisms of lack. तुम्हारे पास पैसे नहीं है, तुम्हारे पास महीने का फिक्स्ड एक्सपेंसेस आते हैं, उसके साथ आप हाउस हेल्प की कैसे मदद कर सकते हो, दूसरे लोगों की कैसे मदद कर सकते हो, आप चैरिटी कैसे कर सकते हो, हमारे पास फिक्स टाइम है, 6 लोगों से कैसे बात कर सकते हो, वट एवर द लैक माइंडसेट दैट वी आर लिविंग. और ऑफिस में आना है, अगर वो उनके आपस में उन्होंने कोई साथ बदतमीजी कर रहे हैं, हाउ कैन यू शो अप, यू डोंट हैव एनी प्लेस, वो दूसरे डिपार्टमेंट में उनका अपना मसला है. When we show up with this lack mindset, then we feel like we can't change the system. This is how it works. But when we show up with the fact that I refuse to be disconnected anymore and I want to connect back to my humanity, the least we can do is go up to that person and say, do you want to talk about this? Because what this happened was not okay. It's just a conversation to know that you're hearing and you're listening, because it's difficult. Of course, it's the most difficult, because this is something that we're learning now to do for the first time. To show up as feeling beings, Thinking beings was never a problem since the Industrial Revolution. But feeling beings, big problem for centuries now. Because to feel is to feel the pain and to mourn. But to feel is also a heart that they do not have inroads in. They just don't have it. And by they, I mean every power who has ever wanted to control. And this need for power that we have, and I want to talk briefly about this because, again, we have a fixed form of what power looks like: brute force, killing, maiming, threatening, etc. But we have these power politics being played out in our homes by the women of our homes and the men of our home every day. Even the parents with their own children. The smallest, the easiest, most accessible example is when a father is old and he refuses to hand over the business to the sons. It's a need for control. Or when women are still controlling their children by withholding their love from them, by withholding the validation for them. So the way that the masculine expresses power and control is what Palestine looks like. The way a woman expresses her love for power and control is very different, is equal to these distorted, manipulative, control-ridden relationships in all aspects of our life, or what we call toxic relationships in all aspects of our life, are very strongly contributed to by women. Because men have a different way of exerting control. Women have a different way of exerting control. None of us are blameless. So this power politics that we see being played out in our own lives is how we begin to shift the power politics of the world. And this need for power and control, there's a way of identifying where it's coming from, because this is like a blanket picture right now. The need for power and control is a blanket picture, and we need to shift it. How? First of all, know that the behavior that you're doing, because, subhanallah, I was reading this, I was listening to this beautiful lecture, and it's like, there is a heaviness that comes with zulm. There's a weight upon your soul. And perhaps the reason why most of us is dissociated, are living dissociated lives, is because we don't want to feel the weight of the zulm upon our soul. जो जुल्म है उसका एक एक्चुअल वेट है आपके सोल के ऊपर, एक भारीपन, एक बोझ होता है हमारे अपनी सोल के ऊपर, एंड उस बोझ को हम लोग फील ना करें is why we don't want to look into that booj at all. So it's not as if we're doing it for other people. It's not as if every time that we lash out at somebody or try to control somebody or try to treat someone not well, it's not as if we are feeling good about it. And I want us to really apply that to the biggest oppressors that we know in our own lives. None of them, no matter how effortless it may seem to you, no matter how effortless that oppressor's actions and their cruelty may feel to you, they have a booj on their soul, whether that translates into sleeplessness, into addictions, into anxiety, into health problems. हर oppressor का कोई issues हैं, क्योंकि उनके बोझ जो है soul के ऊपर आता है every time they oppress another. So there's an actual literal energetic weight that presses down upon the soul when we go away from home. When we do zulm upon ourselves, is to go away from home. और उस बोझ को रिलीज जब हम लोग हर कोई बिहेवियर डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करते हैं जुल्म का, so that's the first part. When you understand कि ये जो मैंने किया है इसका एक energetic footprint है, इसके ऊपर एक as if it's left a residue, as if it's left a waste, and that waste is now on my soul. Second step is, once we understand that हम लोग अपने ऊपर जुल्म कर रहे हैं, because we never feel good about doing it. We don't. Again, we can hide from it, we can suppress it, but we don't feel good about doing this. So once we understand that this behavior is pressing down on our soul, when we find ourselves ready to do it, examine the motives. Why did I act this way? What did I want as a result of this? And if And when we begin to understand कि मेरा, I wanted to feel safe, I don't want to lose this, इसलिए we justify this, our own zulm to our own selves, कि अगर मैं ये ना करती तो मुझसे ये छिन जाता या मुझसे ये चला जाएगा. So it is deeper. So the motive behind the behavior, or I will be, my weakness will be seen. By the way, the primary motivation of all oppressors, now this is specifically mostly for men, all men, all men, all men who do zulm, the biggest fear that they have is they will see that there's a little boy hurt inside me who has no idea how to deal with life. Everything that they're doing in their life is so that that little boy inside them is not seen. Because agar wo little boy nazar aa gaya, they will have to really sit down with them and feel the boj that that little boy is carrying. And that's overwhelming. People have, like, you can't deal with that. You can't deal with it. So the motivation primarily is fear. कि मेरी वीकनेस पता चल जाएगी, मेरा दुख पता चल जाएगा, और या मुझे इन लोगों को पता चल जाएगा कि मैं कितना छोटा फील कर रहा हूँ या मैं कितनी छोटी फील कर रही हूँ. And I'm so lost and I'm so clueless that I will speak just as eloquently to hide the fact that I know nothing. And I will, as lost as I am, I will show up in the most polished way with not a hair out of place and my clothes immaculately starched. Because agar maine ye na kiya, and again, this is a need for control. Oppression is the zulm upon ourselves first, remember? हम लोग किसी और के ऊपर oppress कर ही नहीं सकते जब तक हम लोग अपने आप को oppress पहले ना करें. It is through us. We have to pierce a soul. We have to drill a hole through our soul to oppress another. I really want us to feel into it. उनको तो बाद में दर्द होता है, लेकिन हमने जो पैसेज वे अपने अंदर से उधर तक क्रिएट किया है अप्रेस करने का, वो सबसे पहले हमने अपनी सोल के अंदर, अपने हार्ट के अंदर एक होल ड्रिल किया है जिसके अंदर से हम लोग वो स्नाइपर उतार के उनको अप्रेस कर सके. So the first zulm that we have done is upon our soul. La ilaha illa anta subhanaka, आप सुभान, इन्नी कुंतुम मिन ज़ालिमीन, अपने ऊपर हम लोग किसी को नुकसान नहीं पहुंचा सकते without first drilling that hole within ourselves. And it is this awareness that we want to now look at the oppressors in our life. If it is us, then yes. If it is another, then yes. But see, उनके अंदर से सीने जख्मी और छलनी हुए हैं. They have oppressed us with a great cost, at a great cost. And that cost is something they will not be able to live with. They can pretend for even 75 years. But subhanallah, remember, when the ruh of an oppressor exits their body, it's as if it's being yanked out, कोई खींच के निकाल रहा है. आपकी body stiff और पकड़ी हुई होती है, कोई खींच के निकाल रहा है. The way we exit back to Allah, we go back, we return to Allah Ta'ala, the way the ruh exits our body back to its creator is the most painful moment, or could be the most beautiful moment. But for an oppressor, that's the most painful moment. And hota hai na ki there is, because we don't measure in any universe, in any energetic universe, we don't measure pain with the quantity, we measure it with the quality. मतलब आप 500 मिलियन दफा भी अपने आप को नीडल से पिन प्रिक से अगर नीडल करते रहोगे, उसकी पेन नहीं होती. एक चाइल्डबर्थ की जो पेन है that is equal to 5 million. So there is no level, there's no quantity to the depth of pain that is felt. And we feel that many people have gotten away and will get away with such heinous atrocities here in this world without having paid the price. No, they will not. They will begin to pay the price from the moment, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. It is easier to point the finger at another, but I do not know whether it's my ruh who will leave like this, which will leave like this as well. So astaghfirullah, Allahumma inni ghafurun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni. and la ilaha illa anta subhanaka inni kuntu minas zalimin. We do not know the depth of that pain that will be felt at the time the ruh exits the body, and how that will be equal to every moment of pain ever inflicted. And that is just the beginning. That is just the beginning. And you know, this I do not wish upon my worst enemy. This I do not wish. Because in this moment, as we are alive and we're breathing, and we are asked to stand as witnesses upon our own lives, upon our own nafs, first of all, then upon our relationships, then upon our households, then upon our culture, then upon our religion, and upon the ummah, and then upon Palestine. We're like asked to stand witness upon all of that. We have our faculties intact. Abhi hamare paas waqt hai to shift. But us waqt, I do not wish, the reason why I don't wish that upon my worst enemy is because us waqt, complete helplessness. It's Pharaoh. When he was overcome, when he was drowning, it was Pharaoh who said, okay, now I believe, Ya Musa, in your Allah, in your Khuda, not even to Allah directly. He said, now Allah, Musa, I believe in your Khuda. And Allah Ta'ala is like, no, too late. Not when you are overcome. And death is when we are overcome. The last breath is when we are overcome. And subhanallah, Hazrat Noor's dua, "Rabbahu maghlooban fantas'ir." So, oh my God, you know, my Quran teacher used to say this to me. Not to me, to the whole class. She said one of the first duas that I began reciting, because she's a revert. And one of the first duas that I began to recite, she used to say is, "Rabbahu maghlooban fantas'ir." मखलूब, या अल्लाह मेरे ऊपर गलबा आ गया है, मैं डूब रहा हूँ। रब्बहु अन्नी मगलूबन फंतसिर, मेरी मदद करो, help me, I am overcome, ya Allah, I am overcome. And subhanallah, Hazrat Noor is the one of the flood. How he was overcome, people who, because of whom he made this dua, the reason why he felt overcome, were overcome. Subhanallah. Look at the exactness of the balance. मगलूब, मेरे पर गलबा तारी हो रहा है, मैं डूब रहा हूँ, मगलूब, और उन्हीं के ऊपर पानी आ गया, वही सारे डूब गए. And it is one of the most powerful dua of the oppressed, because ये नबियों की कबूल की हुई दुआ है. रब्बहु अन्नी मगलूबन फंतसिर. And the divine help, when it comes, divine help that is promised. Divine help that is promised, and we do not know the hikmat. We do not know as the oppressed now, because one is enabling oppression, and enabling oppression is about breaking patterns. In very simple terms, enabling oppression can only be overcome by breaking patterns, and those are generational patterns, those are cultural patterns, those are social patterns, those are relationship patterns. Just because things are done this way, and subhanallah, every time a prophet has come, they have come to do what? To dismantle the cultural, the social, and the relationship patterns. Every time they've only come with one agenda. Whatever you're doing is not working. And so in spite of Palestine, if we are still continuing to do what we know in our souls, as we drill the holes through our souls, if we continue to do what we know is not working, then there is a flood coming for us personally, because now times have shifted. Now big floods in ways that can be seen and witnessed upon the whole world, although वो भी आते रहते हैं, tsunami भी आते हैं, earthquakes भी आते हैं, volcanoes भी erupt होते हैं, natural disasters भी आते हैं, hurricanes भी आते हैं, but लोग नहीं सीखते, हम नहीं सीखते. लोग क्या, हम हैं, वो लोग कौन हो, वो मैं हूँ. I've never been affected by Katrina. I've actually never been affected by Ukraine. So subhanallah, मैं कल रात को अल्लाह ताला से बात की, मैंने कहा अल्लाह आपकी कुदरत और मेरी stubbornness, मेरा इतना जुल्म है मेरी ज़ात के ऊपर कि it took a premature baby who was born early because his mother, its mother had to give birth due to malnutrition in Palestine. It took that for me to realize कि मैं किस हद तक जुल्म कर रही हूँ अपने ऊपर, अपने मतलब मेरा नफ्स कितना कुछ सख्त होगा, मेरा दिल कितना कुछ सख्त होगा, मेरा सिद्र कितना कुछ सख्त होगा कि Palestine had to happen. बट सुभान अल्लाह देयर मैनी, और आप देख रहे हो आपके सामने जो जो स्टूडेंट्स को मार रहे हैं और जो स्पीक अप कर रहे हैं और जो स्पीक अप नहीं कर रहे हैं. रिमेंबर वी इनेबल ऑपरेशन थ्रू ईदर बीइंग डिसोसिएटेड, वी गोइंग अबाउट इन आवर ओन लाइव्स, लंचेस पे जा रहे हैं, बात नहीं. मैं तो रैंडम ग्रुप से मैंने कहा टॉक अबाउट फलस्तीन, बिकॉज not because I want them to talk about it, because if not now, then when? Because my God, look at what the world in my lifetime has gone through, and मेरा तो नहीं दिल हिला. फिर हम लोग कहते हैं क्यों हो रहा है फलस्तीन? क्योंकि मेरा दिल, मैं अपने बारे में बात कर सकती हूँ ना, क्योंकि मेरा दिल इतना सख्त हो चुका था. And what is this सख्त दिल? It's generational trauma, it's personal trauma, it's generational trauma, it's cultural trauma, it's religion. मेरा दिल इतना सख्त हो चुका था कि 15,000 children and 40,000 Musliman ummah had to die for my heart to soften. It's really as simple as that. That's the path they chose for people like us, hardened hearts. So when we the next time want to ask and have this conversation, why is Palestine happening? Examine the state of my heart. Examine the state of your heart. How hard is your heart? If we have not, if you're not, if from the very least, if our heart, if our eyes do not shed tears still, looking at Palestine, and if our words have not become softer, and if our behavior towards the people who are alive and who are well and who are not fighting for their lives and who are not at risk of being shot to death, if our behavior towards those people, if our behavior towards the nema that we have. मैं अपनी अम्मा से उस दिन बात कर रही थी, मैंने कहा अम्मा आपने सारी जिंदगी, my mother's never wasted food, subhan Allah, and she's that little elf that wakes up at night and cleans up all the plates that everybody else has left over, and she never allows anybody to throw anything away. She said fridge mein rakh do. And her dinner plate, and I know this is perhaps the story of most of our mothers, her dinner plate is like this thali that nobody wants to have because it's a self-curated thali, but it's like phekna nahi. And I've lived and I've grown up in that household, and it's not a new thing for me, but I've never been mindful of it. And since Palestine, look at what it takes for simple things that we could have learned another way, but as Allah is our witness, हमारे हाथ सख्त हो चुके हैं बहुत ज़्यादा. It had to take Palestine के उस दिन मैं अपने किचन में गई हूँ और मैंने ट्रैश बिन खोला है और उसमें एक गला हुआ सेब था. And I have OCD, like proper, legit. Well, that's one part of my identity, but whatever. वो मैंने हाथ से निकाला है वो सेब, और रात के 12 सवा 12 बज रहे थे. मैं गई हूँ, दरवाजे खोले, ऐसी की तैसी जो भी हो, दरवाजे खोले, बाकी मैंने जाके परिंदों के लिए रखा है उस कटोरी में कि परिंदे खाएंगे, टोकरी में नहीं ये सेब जाएगा. Palestine had to happen. My lifetime behavior habits did not shift. How can I ask this question, why Palestine? My question is this heart. The answer is always because of your heart, Nadia. And then in this moment, if I don't take responsibility then for my own religion, because this is not a nationalistic cause, people are waking up, people who are not Muslims are reverting back home. People like me who had been doing zulm and continue to, I'm sure in multiple ways, still doing zulm in my own life by being short-tempered and cranky and bitey. zulm है क्योंकि हमारी फितरत इज रहमान रहीम. हमारी फितरत मोम की तरह पिघली हुई, मलाई की तरह नरम है और ठंडी फितरत है हमारी ठंडी फितरत है. और यही फितरत मेरे बेटे की भी है, यही फितरत मेरे उस बंदे की भी है, उस बंदी की भी है, जो चीखे मारा है उसकी भी है, जो गालियां दे रहा है उसकी भी है, जो ऐसे कर रहा है उसकी भी है, जो वैसे कर रहा है उसकी भी है, जो नमाज पढ़ा है उसकी भी है, जो नहीं नमाज पढ़ा. ये फितरत हम सबकी एक है. And in the moment that I do anything against my fellow human, and by anything I mean the way that I think about them, oh weak person, oh not good person, oh kafir, oh moralless, ethicless person. Any time that I think this way about another human being, मैं अपनी मोम की फितरत में एक बुलेट होल क्रिएट करी. It is really as intense as that. And my son says all the time, Mama, why do you have to take everything so seriously? Because it is serious. Because each of my breath is accounted for. I will be asked to account for each of my breath. It is serious. And I do distract myself with non-serious things. But I know, as Allah knows now, alhamdulillah, that I know when I'm distracting. I know, Madhya, what are you running from? It is serious. It is not mirth and laughter. This dunya is not mirth and laughter. And Palestine had to happen to remind ourselves it is not mirth and laughter. We can't go about our teas and our get-togethers without them having a purpose of the soul attached to it. It is not okay anymore. ओ हम लोग टाइम आउट कर रहे हैं, हम लोग रिलैक्स कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास 70 से ज्यादा साल नहीं है यार, अगर अल्लाह ने हमें इतनी मोहलत दी। उन बच्चों के पास 2 हफ्ते नहीं थे। It is serious. And nobody likes doomsday talk. I love to be like the life of the party and crack jokes and have fun. But it's serious. Because if I were not doing zulm, अगर मैं अपने घर से इतनी दूर ना होती, तो शायद ये वक्त इतना इम्पोर्टेंट ना होता। बट हम लोग अपने घरों से बहुत दूर हैं। And as Allah knows, as Allah is my witness, when I say हम अपने घरों से बहुत दूर हैं, मुझे सिर्फ अपना घर सर दिख रहा है, मैं अपने घर से बहुत दूर हूँ। And I know that perhaps I will never really truly reach home the way that I meant to reach home. But I've started walking back home and गिरते पड़ते and distract होते, अपने आप को distract करते, 6000 कुर्ते लेते जिसको मुझे जरूरत नहीं है। बट क्योंकि चूंकि मैंने कोई होल किसी तरह फिल करना है, आई एम माइंडफुल ऑफ ऑल द attachments and the addictions that I have. But as Allah is my witness, I'm walking back home. And somehow my pace has become more mindful and more focused with Palestine. क्योंकि वक्त ये नहीं है कि वक्त नहीं है क्योंकि क़यामत आ रही है, उनके ऊपर तो क़यामत आ चुकी है। कौन सी क़यामत आ रही है? ऐसी क़यामतें हमारी सबकी जिंदगी में बहुत आती हैं। अब तो पूरी दुनिया पे क़यामत आई हुई है, उनके ऊपर तो आई हुई है क़यामत। उनकी फैमिलीज जिनके साथ नहीं है, उनके ऊपर तो क़यामत है, ये सारी क़यामत है, वो तो आ गई है। सो नॉट बिकॉज़ क़यामत आ रही है, नॉट बिकॉज़, बट बिकॉज़ वेयर आर वी गोइंग? हम लोग गलत निकल गए हैं, हमारा रास्ता कब्र है। And I go back and it's so serious, right? Nobody wants, I want to feel inspired. I want to feel inspired too. And I want to look at this pain of this world, and I want this pain to inspire me back into feeling. And that inspiration may not look like motivational lectures anymore. That inspiration may look like, hey, Allah, मैं अपने घर से दूर आ गई, मैंने अपने पर जुल्म किया है, मेरी help करो, मेरा heart कितना hardened है, because it has taken Palestine for us to want to wake up now. And you'll notice this, subhanallah, for people who are awake and who are ready to connect back, उनकी relationships हिल गई हैं। Like 2-3 का मुझे specifically मालूम है। वो अपने अपने पर्सनल रिलेशनशिप्स उनकी चेंज हो रहे हैं, डायनामिक्स चेंज हो रहे हैं, सिटीज चेंज हो रही हैं, कंट्रीज चेंज हो रही हैं, जॉब्स छोड़े हैं, बस because I'm going to start taking charge of what I'm traveling, which road I'm traveling, and what bag that I'm holding as a travel bag. And as I was doing the duas for the oppressed, because एक होती है oppressed के हमारे पर जुल्म हो रहा है, और दूसरी oppression वो है कि हम अपने पर जुल्म कर रहे हैं। In both instances हमारे ऊपर जुल्म हो रहा है। In both instances our hearts are oppressed. अगर हम लोग oppress भी कर रहे हैं लोगों को, फिर भी actually हम अपने आप को ही oppress कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि वो drill तो hole हमने अपने heart में किया हुआ है ना, तो जुल्म तो हमने फिर भी अपने ऊपर ही किया। So these some of the most beautiful, because of subhanallah, the dua of the Anbiya are so powerful, and they're just so comforting. And there's this dua, and I'll share this with you just now after the call. I'll write it in the group. And it says, this is the dua of, If a person subjected to oppression recites a dua, it really helps them overcome the oppressor. And this is Imam Musa bin Jafar al-Kazim. And I'm going to read the translation and I'll share the dua. O He who equips me to cope with the hardships which have afflicted me. O He who helps me to take off the load of the sorrows which have burdened me. Keeps an eye which never sleeps on me. Make me competent to deal with the misfortunes with the help of a strong reinforcement from you, which cannot be knocked down. O He who owns the strongest strength, O He who owns the most majestic majesty, O He who owns the highest honor, compared to which all that which has been created is low and humble. Send blessings on Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and on the children of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Make me competent to deal with the oppressor and punish them for what they have done to me. And who is the biggest oppressor? Yes, of course, we have external oppressors. This is a stunning, powerful dua for Palestine. And for ourselves, because we stand witness upon Palestine, the strongest oppressors that we have is our own nafs. Because it is easier to make dua for another, whose sorrow you will never be able to feel fully. But to make dua for our own nafs, हमारे पर बरहक है, अल्लाह ताला ने कहा है पहले अपने लिए दुआ करो. क्यों? वही बात, क्योंकि बाहर का ऑपरेशन पॉसिबल नहीं है जब तक हमने अपने ऊपर ऑप्रेस नहीं अपने आप को किया हुआ. Unless we have not done zulm upon ourselves, there is no zulm possible outside. अल्लाह कहते हैं अपने ऊपर अपने लिए दुआ करो. तो ये दुआ हमारे मेरे अपने नफ्स के लिए है. अपने नफ्स के साथ बैठें, उसको पकड़े, अपने सामने रखें, तज़किया नफ्स सामने रखें और उसको ही उसके लिए दुआ करें कि अल्लाह ये देखें कितना हार्डन हुआ. So many things, so many actions and behavior that I'm doing in my daily life without thinking कि ये ऐसे ही होता है. मैं तो फिर भी दूसरे लोगों से ज्यादा बेहतर बात करती हूँ अपने ड्राइवर से. ला इलाहा इल्ला अंता सुब्हानका इन्नी कुन्तु मिनज़ ज़ालिमीन. I have been given the resource of kindness. I can afford to be kind. मुझे मेरे बच्चे भूखे नहीं है, मेरे सर के ऊपर छत है, मेरे हाथ पांव सलामत हैं, मेरी हेल्थ है मेरे पास, मेरी वेल्थ है मेरे पास, मेरा सुकून है मेरे पास. I can of all people be afford to be kind. If nothing else, I can afford to be kind, and Allah knows what a struggle it is for me. So unkind नजरों लोगों पे तो जाहिर है मेरी नजर जाएगी, क्योंकि मुझे अपने अंदर काइंडनेस नहीं दिख रही है. So ये दुआ तो मेरे नफ्स के लिए हुई ना फिर. And my Quran teacher also, Rabbu Anni Maghloobun FANTAS'IR, is also the dua for your own nafs. मैं डूब रही हूँ, चाहे वो डूब is when we realize हमारे hearts कितने hardened है. ये डूब रही हूँ when we realize कि हमारे outside circumstances कितने hardened है. And then there is another very powerful dua. I'm going to share both of these as well. एक तो बहुत ही simple invocation है, which by the way is it's simple. Ya Rabbahu, Ya Rabbahu. In sajda. Ya Rabbahu, Ya Rabbahu. क्योंकि pain does not have a language, because pain does not have words, because hardness does not know a song. So आप क्या दुआ मांगो? फलस्तीन के लिए आप क्या दुआ मांगो? उन माओं के लिए, उन बच्चों के लिए, उन बाप के लिए, उन बूढ़े माँ बाप के लिए जिनके जवान बच्चे के हाथ पांव या जान चली गई है. हम अपने लिए, अपने बच्चों के लिए, अपने माँ बाप के लिए, अपने रिश्तेदारों के लिए हम लोग क्या दुआ मांगे? हमें तो नहीं मालूम. तो आप क्या उस वक्त कहते हो? या रब्बा हो, या रब्बा. आई डोंट हैव एनीथिंग. ये मेरा माथा आपके सामने पड़ा हुआ है इस वक्त. ले लो मेरे से जो कुछ लेना है, बट मेरे रब हुआ. एंड रिमेंबर इन कुरान ऑल्सो, when Allah Ta'ala is referred to in the majesty of him, he is Allah. When he's referred to in a deep intimate connection relationship with you, जो आपके हैं, जो अपने हैं, जो मेरे हैं, उनको हमेशा रब कहा है. रब्बहु अन्नी मगलूबन फंतसिर. रब्बहु, not Allahu. रब्बहु अन्नी मगलूबन फंतसिर. मेरे मालिक, मेरे खालिक. So a powerful dua for the oppressor. Another one which invokes Rabbahu, Rabbahu ke iske alawa, which invokes Subhanallah, is a surrender, a dua of surrender. Because it's when we feel overcome, We feel that we do not have the strength to fight anymore or to swim anymore. But if we stop swimming, then we will just drown. This dua is that. And dua is in the name of Allah, with Allah, from Allah, unto Allah, and in the way of Allah. Oh Allah, I surrender myself to you. I direct myself towards you. I entrust my affairs to you. So keep me safe with the preservation of belief from in front of me, from behind me, from my right side, from my left side, from above me, from below me, and repel evil from me with your strength and power, because verily there is no strength and no power save with Allah, the High, the Greatest. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. And feel into, but because I know most of us would do that, but what I really love about duas is the frequency of dua. And for me personally, as a soul, I discover the frequency of dua in the way that I recite it, in the rhythm that I recite it. And this is not a dua that I've ever recited before, but it just speaks to me so beautifully and so simply in the rhythm. Bismillahi wa billahi wa minallahi wa ilallahi wa fi sabilillahi. Allahumma laka aslamtu nafsi wa alayka wajhatu wajhi wa alayka fawwaztu amri wa وحفظني بحفظ الإيمان من بين يدي من خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي ومن تحتي وادفو عني بحولك وقوتك فإنه لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. It is a song that you're singing to your creator. You're saying कि मुझे हर तरफ से लपेट लो, हर तरफ से लपेट लो अपनी चादर, बल्कि जैसे अम्मी की चादर होती है ना, जिसमें आप धूप, बहुत तेज धूप हो या सख्त बारिश हो या बहुत ठंड हो, हर मौसम में उस चादर में लपेट लेता है. ये दुआ वो चादर है जो लपेटने वाली है. Because again, the first oppression happens, we do to ourselves. Only then first we begin to be unkind to ourselves. Only then can we begin to be unkind to other people. So it may be very difficult for us to answer this question, Allah Ta'ala, teach me more kindness towards them. You may not like them, or it's just something, people who trigger you off. No, a more beautiful dua is, Allah Ta'ala, teach me to be kinder to myself. It's because I have been unkind to myself that I am now being unkind to the other. The dua that enable, because आप अपने आप से kindness सीख सकते हो. ये आसान है और खूबसूरत है और इतना आसान है आपको दूसरे की, oh Allah, enable for me to forgive that other person. No, so hard. Look at what they did to you. Look at how they destroyed your life and how they manipulated you, how they oppressed you, and how they amused you. It's so difficult. No, I can't forgive you. Allah enable me to forgive myself. Oh my God, what a beautiful dua. And then when we begin to examine all the ways that we wished we could be different, the way that we allowed them, and the way that we learn to forgive ourselves for all the ways that we thought we were not enough, all the ways that we thought we were not worthy, all the ways that we thought we deserved it, all the ways that we thought this was our kismat, all the ways that we thought that this is what we were made to bear, this trial and this tribulation, all these ways, no. When we begin to learn self-forgiveness, we're going to say, Allah Ta'ala, forgive me, help me to forgive myself for staying in places too long and for not being able to walk away, even when I knew that I should have. Help me forgive myself. When we ask for that forgiveness, it is so easy, so painful and so easy. But you know what? We're not in the process of dissociation. We're not in this habit of dissociation anymore. Dissociated adults can be controlled. Heart-based souls, heart-based Muslims, heart-based insan cannot be controlled, And that's what's terrifying the oppressors right now. Because उनको तो एक ही तरीके से कंट्रोल करना आता है ना, जुल्म के थ्रू. और उनके हार्ट, अगर मेरे हार्ट इतने हार्डन हैं, सोचो उनके कितने हार्डन होंगे. मैंने तो इन अ बिग वे किसी की जान तो नहीं ली है ना, डिलिबरेटली एंड प्रीमेडिटेटेड मर्डर तो नहीं मैंने किया. तो फिर भी मेरा हार्ट इतना तो अस्तगफिरुल्लाह, मेरा हार्ट इतना तो हार्डन नहीं है. फिर भी इट्स टेकन मी फलस्तीन फॉर मी टू स्टार्ट सॉफ्टनिंग, राइट, इन डीपर सिंपलर वेज. उनके हार्ट कितने हार्डन होंगे. तो उनको तो एक ही तरह कंट्रोल करना आता है कि मैं भी बहुत पेन में हूं, अब पूरी दुनिया को पेन में देखना चाहता हूं मैं. Well, what? No, no, not if we decide to feel our own pain first. So they cannot have, when they're looking for pain, imagine an octopus which is sending out its tentacle, looking for pain in other people. One person is fully familiar with their own pain. वहां पे उनको कोई tentacle मिलता ही नहीं, उनको कोई वो connect नहीं कर सकते उनके साथ, हमें control नहीं कर सकते pain के through. Because we know we are aware of our own pain. अब क्या control करोगे आप? आप मुझे बताओगे मैं लेस हूँ, मुझे बड़ी अच्छी तरह पता है। आपको बताओगे कि मैं अनवर्दी हूँ, मुझे बड़ी अच्छी तरह पता है। आई बीन लिविंग विद इट। आपको पता, आप बताओगे कि मैं जो हूँ, जो भी, इन ऑल द वेज दैट वी बिलिटल आवरसेल्व्स, व्हेन वी आर अवेयर, सेल्फ अवेयर of why we do what we do, the motivations behind our behaviors and the feelings behind our motivations. When we get into the habit of sitting with that pain, when we begin, then get in the habit of talking about that pain, then tea parties turn into soul circles. When we're in the habit of being in soul circles, we cannot be controlled. And it is this which is terrifying to the oppressor, because they're not being able to control Palestine. Because उनके अंदर कुरान है, उनके अंदर faith ही मुख्तलिफ है, उनके हाथ पांव काट ले लो सबको, कहाँ नहीं है ना, you can't take everything. वो कह रहे थे, I was look subhanallah, I was looking at this doctor's interview who served in Gaza, and they said, वो कह रहे हैं कि हमें तो शहीदों की मुश्क की खुशबू आ रही है, हम क्या करें? How can you control these people? But they are reminding us, subhanallah, let their sacrifice not be in vain. We don't want another Palestine, and subhanallah, we don't want that Palestine for our child to be in that Palestine, do we? They are sacrificing their children. Let their sacrifice not be in vain, so that we may be able to wake up. Why are they sacrificing this? Wake up to your own pain, so that you can't be controlled through it. Wake up to your own wounds, so that you can't be controlled through them. Own your own wounds before they are manipulated for you. Own them fully. Speak of them fully. In circles which speak of equal wounds. Say, हाँ मैं ये भी हूँ, मैंने ये भी किया, मैंने ये भी किया, मैंने ये भी किया, अब क्या? How, what will you now use to control me with? Nothing. You have nothing on me. I own it. It's between me and my Allah. What will you now try to manipulate? Nothing. Our biggest force is the force that we can be controlled through is pain, through fear. Live with that fear every day, and they can not control you. मैं तुम्हें घर से निकाल दूंगा, निकाल दो. Do it. Live it now, so that our children don't have to live it. Live it now. छोड़ दो अपने घर, छोड़ दो अपने रिश्ते, छोड़ दो जो छूटता है यार, जो आप लोगों को धक्के हैं, जो हम लोगों को धक्के मारे हैं, छोड़ दो, so that our children don't have to repeat this cycle of pain. And Allah is my witness, my children will not. Especially now with Palestine, no, they will not. No, they will not. They will not be pushed into groveling for leftovers and for resources. We will not be pushed into believing there are दूसरे खुदा exist करते हैं. ला हौला वला कुव्वता इल्ला बिल्लाह. नौकरी है, ले लो. पैसे नहीं दोगे, ना दो. भाग जाओगे, भाग जाओ. क्या हो, घर छिन जाएगा, क्या हो जाएगा? उनको शहीदों की मुश्क की खुशबू आ रही है. Total 65, 70, 75, कितनी लंबी देर लेटेंगे? So what? But we will now be mindful of every step that is walking back home. गिरें पड़े, हमारे bags बहुत heavy हों, घर रास्ते में जितनी भी allow ourselves to be distracted also, because we've been away from our homes for a long time. Don't expect yourself to run back home with a straightforward arrow-like dash of an Olympic sprinter. No, we'll be distracted many times throughout. That's okay, as long as we are on that road back home. Because on that road back home, there is no other power that can, like they can distract us, vasvasa, but nothing else anymore, not anymore. So make it matter, make Palestine matter. Examine the hardness of our own hearts to really witness the depth in which the way they've been hardened. From feeling pain and from feeling the terror of our own life, so that we may not ever be controlled by another. And la hawla wala quwwata illa billah, la hawla wala quwwata illa billah, la hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.